Bill, you built Vortex Comics from scratch back in the 80s. You had a stint as a race car driver, then became a film producer with over 80 credits to your name. That's incredibly impressive right off the bat. Every chapter of your career seems to start with you spotting something that others hadn't seen yet. What did you see in this moment in teenagers, in storytelling, and in the industry that told you that Buzzflix was the right move right now?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the accolades. Usually those are reserved for your retirement speech, but I have no plans of retiring anytime soon because I have all these amazing kids to work with. There's a lot of things that led me to decide to move the whole Buzzflix idea forward. First and foremost, every year here at Vortex, which is a very successful company, makes a lot of movies every year, distributes probably about 50 third-party movies every year as well. We have a couple of interns come into the office, and I look at these kids, and they are awesome. They're smart, they're hardworking, they're focused. And I think to myself, these guys are great. They are going to have a fabulous future in this industry. But I was seeing time and time again that they were running into brick walls. There was nowhere for them to go when they graduated, other than to start at the bottom in a very hierarchical business, work as a PA if you're one of the lucky ones, and get part-time work and live with your parents. And it just all seemed like there must be something better out there.
Right.
And then I came up with this idea, and I've encapsulated it for the kids. I said, look, you guys can do every job on a film already. You're digital native. You've been growing up making movies on your phone since you were 2. They've all gone through training at good polytechnic or university programs. Mm-hmm. The only thing that we can do, Tony and I, that they can't do is raise millions of dollars to go out and make movies with. That's really hard. And, I've been at this, I tell this speech to the point where everyone's bored of hearing it, but I had my first paying job in film in 1978.
Wow, what was that job?
I was the props master on a horror film called Sinophrenic. I got the job because I had a car and nobody else did. So
nice leg up on the competition with the vehicle.
Exactly. Yeah. Having a driver's license turned out to be a good thing, and owning a car turned out to be a very good thing. I delivered a lot of newspapers to buy that car with, by the way. But
right.
So the idea was, it's like, well, we have all this infrastructure and all this experience. Why not put it to work for these young people? Mm-hmm. And then it has kind of evolved, right? It didn't start with what it is now. It started with, maybe I can find summer jobs for 10 kids or 20 kids. Maybe we can have everybody on one of our film crews have an apprentice with them. Mm-hmm. And all of those ideas were valid, but then it just grew. And it was like, no, this is even better than that. Let's have the kids do everything. So I'm very fortunate. I produced a very large film this year with David Bezmozgas called The Betrayers. So, by the way, I'll push it for a second. It's the only ever Canada-Ukraine treaty co-production feature film ever. Wow. And it is coming out this year. We made it last year. 2 of our writers worked on Betrayers as PAs on set. Tony was instrumental in getting Betrayers made because we couldn't shoot in Ukraine, so we shot half the film in Italy and half the film in Ottawa. Mm. Tony was my man in Ottawa, as we like to say. Sorry, I do get a little distracted sometimes when I go down this path.
Passionate.
Anyhow, David Bezmozgas teaches screenwriting at Humber Polytechnic. And so I said, David, those kids who were on Betrayers last year, how are they? And he says, they're fantastic. I have probably a half dozen to a dozen really good writers in my class this year. So Tony interviewed them. We chose 4. we assigned story ideas because I'm very particular about the kind of stories we want Buzzflix to be telling. And then working directly with Tony, who has major studio experience in development, as well as being a senior development executive at Vortex at one time. Working with Tony, the Humber students wrote 4 awesome screenplays. Then again, this idea had evolved into, well, then the kids are going to do everything. They're going to be the directors. They're going to be the cinematographers and the sound recordists and the costume designers. But they're also going to be the locations PAs emptying the garbage cans at the end of the day. Everybody's going to be there. So how does this work? And then the idea evolves further. Well, it's like nobody, whether they're directing or the cinematographer or they're emptying those garbage cans, is really bringing more to the table than anyone else. And film is so hierarchical. And that's one of the problems that stops kids from being able to show what they can do. So we decided to pay everybody exactly the same. So whether you're emptying the garbage cans on movie 1, or you're directing episode 1, because by the way, it's become a television series now, rather than a feature film, because we're going to do 4 episodes across the whole summer. So whether you're the director on the first episode, you might be emptying the garbage cans in the second episode. You could be the costume assistant on movie 2, and you could be directing movie 4. Everything is open, and it really is about people coming and showing what their passion and their ability and their focus is. Wow. So they all get paid the same amount of money. And then we thought, well, this is a big commitment. These kids all need to get summer jobs. They have tuition to pay. Life is hard out there right now. We see the cost of gasoline skyrocketing. We see the entire cost of living, and these kids went to high school during COVID. They've had one kick after another kick after another kick. So let's do something right here. A PA on a Directors Guild movie makes $230 a day or something like that. Right. And I thought, okay, we can do better than that. So we're paying everybody $250 a day. Now, it averages out pretty well because we don't have a cinematographer making $8,000 a week. We have a cinematographer making $1,250 a week. So we can afford to pay, the locations PA better. And in this sort of egalitarian idea, everybody's there. And as I've said to one kid who last summer planted trees all summer to try and make some money, I said, well, you're going to make about 3 times what you'd make planting trees. I am the most entrepreneurial, fiscally conservative guy you will ever meet. But I do believe that people need to be given a chance in this world. And that's really what we're trying to do.
Okay. And if I may, Trevor, just to add on to what Bill said, and Bill, hopefully we're not getting ahead of ourselves here. On Betrayers, 2 of those interns we had on Betrayers last year, one of them is directing our first film, and he's also the writer too. So,
wow. Might I ask also, you said that you're very particular about the kind of stories that you'd like to tell. What kind of stories are those that interest you?
Okay, so what I wanted to do is tell stories that were of interest to young people, right? And, growing up in the 70s and the 80s, we're looking at some pretty, great, very experimental films being made that defined youth culture at the time. Right. But what are kids interested in now? Well, I'm not really the guy to decide. I'm, old enough to be their grandfather. But I've noticed what's happening on YouTube. Yeah. And I'm very curious about the future of communication, broadcast, and finding an audience. Yeah. One of the people I saw on YouTube, that I'm fully transparent about this, I saw this channel on YouTube, Dar Man. Now, Dar Man churns out massive volumes of product. Their focus appears to me to be on making as much content as quickly as they possibly can. And when an audience shows through the data, they start making more of that content for that audience. I think that's a great idea, but it's not what I do. Right. What I do is make very high quality film and television. I thought, but Darman is telling these kinds of stories about kids in high school. So, and he's getting millions and millions of views. And I'm thinking to myself, there's interest here. And then, of course, we have this tremendous success in Canada with the legacy of Degrassi. And I'm thinking, these are the kind of stories that I think have relevance right now. So we wanted to tell stories that are focused in the world of high school to young adults who are navigating complexities that I couldn't have imagined back in the 1970s. And we wanted to tell stories that were relevant, but also family focused. We want stories because we want the world to see these movies, and we want the world to see these movies. We're making shows that will play just as well in Colombia as they will in Saudi, as they will in France or Canada. We're making films for the world, and we're telling stories that we think are universal. That's where the inception of this idea, with full credit to Darman, because he's built an amazing business, but I think we can do it our way too. And then the last little bit of that is that we wanted to tell Canadian stories about Canadian kids. And I looked around, we had a little mixer with the cohort that's coming, the 70 kids we have hired for the whole summer. About 50 of them were able to come to our mixer last week to get to know each other before they all head off to Windsor, Ontario to make the movies. And I looked around the room and I loved what I saw, because what I saw was Canada as it is today. Right? I saw these bright young people of different gender identities, different racial backgrounds, different religious identities demonstrated through their dress. And I thought, this is Canada. And I looked around the room, that made me so happy. So we are making stories in Canada about Canada with these kids who are Canada.
Were you coming from the 70s and 80s? I mean, the 70s particularly was a very golden era of film. And I think that we have the potential for that to turn around and for that to ripple, essentially.
Look we're not going to make Taxi Driver at Buzzflix.
No.
But one of these kids is.
Right.
Right? They're coming out with 4 feature film credits. They're coming out with money in their pockets. And they're also coming out of this with 70 kids who have all been through it together, who are forming a cohort that will go into the industry together. If somebody's smart, they'll just grab them whole and go make movies with them tomorrow after the summer program is finished.
What an incredible experience. I mean, the amount of on-set experience that they're able to get from this is going to...
And they're going to go out and tell their own stories as they grow as filmmakers and artists. One of them, nothing will make me happier than to see, 10 years from now, when thousands of Buzzflixians are out there running the industry, one of them goes and makes a film that makes me cry. It's so beautiful. And I don't care what it is. It could be Taxi Driver, it could be Blue is the Warmest Color, or it could be Minions.